welcome to a podcast about something where each week we dive deep into whatever it is we find interesting. I'm your host, Calvin, and joining me from the Quick Stop in New Jersey, it's your co-host, Nick Richardson.
Hell yeah. I mean, don't you mean your heterosexual life mate, podcast mate?
My heterosexual podcast life mate, yeah. We'll go with that.
That's fair. It's a pleasure, by the way.
Yeah, it's great. We are giving out movie superlatives to the one and only Kevin Smith this week, and I'm pretty excited about this. I watched a lot of Kevin Smith movies. I feel like I'm ready to pack up and move to New Jersey all of a sudden.
Hell no. Nope. No amount of these movies is going to get me to New Jersey. Fuck that noise.
That's very true. So we are giving out our patented movie superlatives today. That means we give out one award. We give out some made-up awards to different movies from a specific subgenre. This week, Kevin Smith movies, and we give out one award per movie and one movie per award. And it's we've got 10 awards. Well, really 5, but we give the best and worst version of both of every award. So we have 5 awards to give out, best and worst.
All the awards.
I summed that up super well this time, didn't I?
I think you did.
Oh, great. So we picked Kevin Smith movies, and a Kevin Smith movie is anything directed by Kevin Smith. Any full-length feature film directed by Kevin Smith. Just to kind of narrow that down. And going into this, I thought Daredevil was directed by Kevin Smith for some reason, and it's not, and I'm really upset about that.
Who did direct that?
I don't know, but there's a director's cut, and it's way better than the actual movie that was put out. And so it was like this running joke, or not a running joke, but it was a joke in Entourage when Vinny Chase did Aquaman, and they're trying to get him back for Aquaman 2, and they're going through all this stuff, and they said that Kevin Smith was directing it, and they're like, oh, that's a joke, they're rushing this thing out. And I was like, oh. And I always just connected that with how bad Daredevil was. I was like, well, that must have been done by Kevin Smith, and it's not. The director of Daredevil is Mark Steven Johnson.
I hope that son of a bitch never had a
shout out
job
that guy.
Yeah, reverse shout out that guy. You fucker. The movie was awful.
This kind of came up. We were just randomly talking about Kevin Smith one time when we were doing different movie superlatives, and we're like, we need to do Kevin Smith movies. And I think it's a great idea. He's incredibly interesting writer and director. He does a lot of good and different things, and I think he should be appreciated for it.
He really is a genuine cat. I enjoy Kevin Smith for a whole lot of reasons, and not even exclusively his movies and stuff like that. Like, he's just a pretty solid dude.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk at the end of this about who Kevin Smith is and what he means to pop culture and the nerd world, because he is very important to that side of things. I think he has a way of telling these normal everyday stories with characters kind of speaking in ways that normal people don't usually speak, with kind of these long soliloquies about nothing, but they make perfect sense in the context of the movie, and then it also somehow feels incredibly real, even though you've got Jason Lee there just rambling for like 2.5 minutes straight. But you're like, no, I know a guy who gets stoned and fucking talks about Superman like that.
Dude, you can relate to it really easily, but I'm gonna talk about the length of some of those a little later.
Yeah. I also think he's written and directed a lot of movies in an array of different styles, which is really cool. Like, going into this, I was like, man, it's going to be Jay and Silent Bob over and over again. And I had seen all of the movies featuring Jay and Silent Bob up to that point, but I hadn't seen a lot of his other things. So now I watched some of these other movies like Jersey Girl, Red State is one, Tusk, Yoga Hosers, like all these different things that he does that kind of play along to it, but aren't necessarily in that universe. And I feel like when you watch someone like Christopher Nolan, like you watch a Christopher Nolan movie, you know what you're getting. You're getting this mind-bending think piece, right? With Kevin Smith, it's not always that easy. And going through these 13 feature-length movies that he had, I felt that going through. Even the ones featuring Jay and Silent Bob can vary drastically between like what Clerks is to what Dogma is to what Chasing Amy is. Like all of those things are completely different stories, even though Jay and Silent Bob show up in them.
Well, and I mean, occasionally there's the same people playing different characters, and it's
he definitely finds his muses and sticks with them.
Oh, well, I'm just still amazed that this dude can direct literally anybody. I mean, he has so many just really high-profile actors coming through his movies.
I think he's also just like a friendly dude. You know,
well, I mean,
he's
like
easy
him.
to just be like, hey man, come be in one of my movies.
Well, I mean, he's like, hey Ben, bro, come be in this, movie for like no money whatsoever, and you might get a lot of shit for it, but
I think he has helped Ben Affleck tremendously because so Ben Affleck was in Dazed and Confused before Mallrats. But I don't think he did much else before that. Maybe School Ties was around. I don't know the exact chronology of it, but just kind of throwing Ben Affleck into these movies and letting him do different things, I think got Ben Affleck very far.
Oh, it helped him cut his teeth in the acting world.
He let Ben Affleck kind of play in this sandbox that he created between Mallrats and Chasing Amy and Jersey Girl. Like, I think he really helped him there.
Oh, definitely, dude. You can see his progression and like his acting skills. Especially when you get to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh, absolutely.
From the beginning to then, it's ridiculous. Or Dogma.
Yeah, Dogma. So I've got a bit on Dogma that I'll get to when we get to. Let's not go too deep on Ben Affleck because that's one of the awards we're giving out. So we'll talk more on Affleck then. And I think so. Most of Kevin Smith movies they're mostly comedic, but a lot of them feel deeper and simpler at the same time. He has this weird balance of like something like Clerks, which is so simplistic, but it feels kind of like there's a depth to it that you don't understand going into it always, and that's really nice.
Oh yeah, there's yeah. I mean, I couldn't have really said it much better. There's a dramatic amount of. He chooses his words carefully. Like his scripts are for the most part well written. Like the dialogue might be clunky, but
I don't think the dialogue's clunky at all. I think
sometimes he has some clunky ass dialogue. I think it's more delivery than anything else when I think about it. But his writing's usually always good. It's coherent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I never felt like while watching 13 of these movies in a row, I never felt fatigued by what he was doing. I feel like if I watched, I don't know, Christopher Nolan has 11 or 12 movies. So I've watched all of those Christopher Nolan movies in a row. First of all, I'd have a headache.
Oh, dude.
Like, there's no way. And I love all of the Christopher Nolan movies. Like, I'm there for him. Christopher Nolan puts out a movie, I'm there. I was super pumped about Tenet. It mostly lived up. I don't think I could watch them all within a month span of time and come out the other end of it knowing like if the world is even real. But Kevin Smith didn't put me into that fatigue at all. And usually if you single out a director like that, I feel like you could very easily get that fatigue.
Definitely. Well, and his is just really digestible because it's it's story driven. It's not ever visual driven. It's not ever there's some dick and fart jokes in there, but that's about it.
It's usually like about some absolutely mundane shit, but it's this weird fresh take on it, and it comes out really cool.
It's quirky as fuck.
Yeah, the other great thing about these is they're relatively short, which is nice.
Yes, thank God.
I think the longest one was Dogma, 2 hours and 2 minutes.
And it did not feel like 2 hours and 2 minutes.
No, Dogma's moving so fast. There's so many things going on that it does not. It doesn't feel like anything. Dogma's interesting, for sure.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
So before we get into it, let's discuss. Do you believe? Well, it's not even do you believe because I studied it as I went through, so I'll just talk about it. The prompt was, is there an all-encompassing Kevin Smith-iverse theory, kind of like the Pixar theory where all these movies fit together? And I think mostly there is. There are some one-offs that don't fit in. Cop Out and Red State don't fit into anything else, but Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Jersey Girl-ish, Clerks 2, and the Jay and Silent Bob reboot all fit together in the wider Askew-niverse, as they call it, because his production company is called View Askew Productions. So in Clerks, we get the jumping off point. Mallrats, we come in, Jay and Silent Bob reference back to Clerks that they got kicked out from, hanging out in front of the Quick Stop, so now they're hanging out at the mall. Come back into Chasing Amy. the reference, Alyssa says her best friend fucked a dead guy in the bathroom at a quick stop, which is what happened in Clerks. So we're right back there, and Ben Affleck's character asked Jay and Silent Bob if they were at the mall again, which is referencing back to Mallrats. In Dogma movies, the fast food chain is introduced, and Jay tells the story of them trying to destroy the stage in Mallrats, so we're still connected there. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. This one these heavy-handed references back to every other movie that existed at this point. They're clearly in on the joke and completely taking out all of the meta text around it. They're just like, yeah, we are mall rats that fuck with clerks
Wink.
and chased Amy with some angels.
Who was played by my buddy, Holden McNeil.
Yeah. So they start right in front of the convenience store from Clerks, with Dante and Randall still working there. Jay and Silent Bob refer to God herself at some point, which is from Dogma. Brody from Mallrats is now running a comic book store. Bluntman and comics from Chasing Amy are now being made into a movie. And Ben Affleck is back as Holden McNeil, and Jason Lee is both Brody and Banky. Movies is back again. And at the end of it, God, Alanis Morissette, actually closes the book on the Askew-universe at the end. But clearly, it wasn't the end because there was more.
This is the end.
And
There'll always be more.
Jay and Silent Bob is probably, it has one of my favorite moments that it didn't fit into any of our categories, and I don't know where to put it, so I'm just going to tack it on here. I believe it's one of Jason Lee's characters says, the internet has given everyone in America a voice, and evidently everyone in America has chosen to use that voice to bitch about movies. And 20 years later, still the truest statement in any of these Kevin Smith movies. Or maybe any movie ever. Like that. I mean, literally, that's what we're still doing here today, and there are 1,000 different podcasts doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of bitching going on about movies. There's a whole lot of praise, too. So, there's that, too.
It was just a funny line that stuck out. So Jersey Girl is an interesting one because it doesn't seem to be connected, but one of the nuns from Dogma works at Ben Affleck's daughter's school, which is a Catholic school. She's a nun at this school now, so you have to think that's the same nun. Maybe.
Movie.
Then Clerks 2, we got the return to movies, and it's a direct sequel to Clerks. And in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, again, this is a sequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and Clerks 2. Bring everybody back and make very thinly veiled references again to all the old Askew-universe movies. And movies is there again.
Movies.
So go ahead.
Movies is mentioned quite an awful lot.
Movies great. Like I like that running joke. That's a really funny running joke because it starts with Matt Damon just wanting to destroy the whole movies franchise because, like, I don't know, there's some fast food conglomerate that sucks.
Well, I love the movie scenes in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah, those are good too.
Those are fantastic.
Clerks 2 takes place all at movies, and that's a funny use of it as well, I think.
It's a good dynamic.
Yeah. And it looks like now Smith has moved on to a new connected universe, starting with Tusk and carrying over into Yoga Hosers. And he has at least one more installment planned called Moose Jaw, which I'm excited for that whenever that comes out. And from what I can gather about Tusk and Yoga Hosers, it seems like Kevin Smith just kind of came up with them by bullshitting around on one of his several podcasts. He's got like 9 podcasts. And I just think it would be super cool to have that kind of power and ability. Like, I think you and we've come up with some great, like, movie and sequel idea, like all these kind of half-baked ideas about movies or TV shows, and we have no way to do anything about them. Like,
we were millionaires.
Kevin Smith is just like, oh, I thought of this funny thing. Yep, it's a movie now, and that's exactly what Tusk was. And then that spawned Yoga Hosers also.
I don't know how funny Tusk was.
Tusk was not funny, but, like, the idea came from it just bullshitting with, on the Smodcast, him and his co-host just bullshitting around making jokes about, like, this guy that got turned into a wall or some blah, blah, blah. But they definitely played it in a different way than what it started as on the podcast.
I mean, you would have to.
Yeah. And then Cop Out and Red State don't fit into either extended universe, so fuck those movies.
Yeah.
They're by far the worst of his movies, too.
That's saying something.
And I feel like Cop Out, he must not have written that one, right? I gotta look this up because
he did not write that.
That feels very un-Kevin Smith.
It's the only one he hasn't written.
Yeah, Red State doesn't feel very Kevin Smith either, but after reading some of like the IMDb trivia on it, I can like see where his personality fits into some of these places. But yeah. Cop Out is just bad, and that definitely looks like he's tied onto a studio for something, and they're just gonna make him direct something, and that's what he did. Or maybe it was when he was battling cancer or whatever, and he needed some money. Yeah, who knows? So, yeah. So, we don't like Cop Out. All right, so now let's move into the awards. Today we're giving out the best and worst Jay and Silent Bob scene, the best and worst Ben Affleck appearance, the best and worst quest. I like this one. We've done it some other times, but the quests in Kevin Smith movies are usually pretty simple. But
they
then
get very complicated.
Yeah, they get very complicated within it. It's like, okay, we're just working at our store for the day, but that becomes something so much greater, right? Or anything Jay and Silent Bob do. Best and worst monologue or rant by a character, and that's something we talked about earlier. Is he has that way of writing where they go on these long soliloquies, and that was like the first thing that popped in my head when I think Kevin Smith of these scenes that are very dialogue heavy. That the dialogue doesn't actually seem to go anywhere. Like they're just bullshitting about nothing on and on and on and on. And that's why he's a good podcaster, I guess.
Well, and at times he hits the nail on the head and is deeply profound.
Oh, yeah. Somewhere in those 3-minute monologues, there's something profound every time.
Right.
But he just takes 3 minutes to make his 15-second point. And I love it. Like those scenes are really great. And the people,
they're solid.
The people who deliver them are really great at doing them. It's usually Affleck or Jason Lee or even whichever London twin is in Mallrats does a good job of them. And then the last award is the best and worst nerd reference, which again, he's the king of the nerds for a reason. So we got to get that in there.
Fuck yes.
All right. So let's get into it right off the bat. The best Jay and Silent Bob scene. Kevin Smith would be nothing without Jay and Silent Bob. I gave mine to Clerks 2. This was a very contentious category for me.
Yes.
There was a lot going into it. I had a scene from pretty much every movie that Jay and Silent Bob feature in, but I needed to use those movies in other awards. So I went with Clerks 2 when Jay wonders what he could have done with his life. And he goes on this long rant about being all kinds of great professions, and he lands on astronaut, which naturally leads him to believe he would have been the first motherfucker to find an alien and fuck it.
That dude is on some wild ass shit, man.
He really is.
Fucking what?
Well, so while watching Clerks 2, I came to this conclusion that Jay and Silent Bob, mostly Jay, they live in this weird space where they're incredibly annoying and one-note characters, but also it somehow works every single time they're on screen. Like some of Jay's shenanigans are over the top, a little bit over the top, and they don't always make sense, but he usually brings it back around, Yeah,
I mean, for the most part.
There's some where he's way out on a ledge, and there's no bringing it back. And I thought, watching through these, this is the point where I would get annoyed. I would get annoyed with Jay and Silent Bob doing the same thing over and over, and it never happened. And in the movies that I watched that they weren't in, I kind of kept waiting for them to just randomly show up because they always kind of provide a nice break to whatever's going on. And so it was this interesting dynamic where it's like they're obviously the most annoying thing about these movies, but also you can't get enough of them weirdly.
Well, they're so genuine. Like it's weird. Like,
yeah, that's every stoner guy out there selling pot by a convenience store. Like Jay is literally that guy.
Well, he's so good. So good at it. And Silent Bob's character they're the perfect dynamic, I think, is really what they're their own entity when they come into a movie, and it changes the narrative in the sense that's how people react off them, because they're just so fucking wacky and they're always into some weird shit and got odd ass stories, and then you got Silent Bob just sitting there smoking and nodding his head.
And once a movie, he'll say something incredibly profound on one of those long Kevin Smith-esque rants.
Right, and he's a fantastic orator, so it's awesome hearing him actually speak. But I remember the first time I heard about these characters, and I started watching these when I was a teenager, and it's like, what the fuck? Why would anyone give a shit about a dude who hardly says anything? And then you learn.
Yeah. Oh, you gonna learn today.
Gonna learn today. Stop it. Get some help.
So what is your best Jay and Silent Bob?
Okay, I'm a piece of shit. I'm going to say this right now. I cheated.
Okay.
I did it. I chose one movie for 2 picks. Because I couldn't resist when it came down to it.
Okay.
This is the first of 2. And that's the J-Rap from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah, that was high on my list.
That whole scene is hilarious. It still is hilarious. And it just makes so... If you ask, like, how the fuck did these 2 people end up like that? That is a perfect example. It's just like, and that makes sense, yo. Get left outside the convenience store. They just grew up there. You know what I'm saying?
Somebody says fuck, and he just goes off on it.
Fuck, mother, fuck, mother. I used to know that whole, it's not a hard song.
No.
But I used to know that whole
it's no
one
Eminem.
From start to finish. He's pretty solid, man.
Oh, yeah.
Rolling fatty, smoking blunts. Who smokes the blunts? We smokes the blunts. And it's got the whole, $15, little man. Put that shit in my hand. And it's iconic. And at the same time, if you've ever stopped to like rewatch this scene a couple times, like I did for this, you really notice that Kevin Smith has a fantastic taste in music. The accompanying soundtrack for movies are super solid, and I don't want to say sound effects, but like the ambient sound effects, I guess is the best way to say it, are fantastic.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and it is picking music because I think Chasing Amy's probably the best straight up soundtrack that he has. But it's not, like you said, it's not just the music that's in the movie. I think they have a Third Eye Blind song in Chasing Amy's soundtrack as well, which go back and listen to our previous episode about when the music stopped for some more sweet Third Eye Blind info.
That was fascinating.
But he has a good ear for putting the right music in the right scenes, and it's almost like he's just got all this time on his hands and money that he can just watch movies, listen to music, and read comic books and put it all together perfectly. And it's great that he does it, and I love it.
Well, we need people like him.
Yeah, that was definitely something I noticed as well, of just how perfectly symmetrical everything feels.
That is fantastic. Yeah. That's a good way to say. I can't stand when every scene is like a swelling fucking number when they're sitting on the toilet to take a shit. It's like, cool it. What movie were we talking about a couple weeks ago where it was like that?
Batman v Superman?
Yeah, that might be it.
The music is very overpowering in that. Yeah.
The whole fucking time.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's... I agree with you there. I like that pick. I had it on my list, but it got... I just liked Jay, who literally never had a chance to be anything else in his life, right? Like, there's no way he's being anything other than a drug dealer outside a convenience store.
Like, I'm curious.
And he's just like, I could have been an astronaut, man.
Yeah, I could have been anything.
So, for worst Jay and Silent Bob scene, I went with Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Oof.
But...
Wait.
I'm waiting.
Are you not doing the best Jay and Silent Bob scene?
I did mine. It was Clerks 2.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I went first there. Yeah. So Zack and Miri Make a Porno. And mostly I just want to clear Zack and Miri Make a Porno off the board. It's terrible. It's the only movie I didn't watch this time through because I just watched it a couple months ago. And it was just awful. Just absolutely awful.
Fucking sucks. Jay and Silent Bob are in? I know Jason
No,
Hughes
they're
is
not.
in that.
So... this is really a 6-way tie, but I gave it to Zack and Miri Make a Porno over everything else because there are 6 movies that Jay and Silent Bob don't show up in, and it's this one, Jersey Girl, Cop Out, Red State, Tusk, and Yoga Hosers. No Jay and Silent Bob whatsoever. So I couldn't think of a bad, like just an outright bad scene with them in it, because I get what they're doing. Like the whole point is for them to break up the monotony of whatever the actual story is, and they always do a good job of that. So I couldn't say anything is bad, and I get why none of these movies contain Jay and Silent Bob. Like, Kevin Smith was clearly trying to do other things with all of these movies and not play up his, these cheap jokes that come with Jay and Silent Bob. But
yeah, you can't have them in everything.
I think it also would have been really interesting for him to find ways to plug these 2 guys into these movies that they don't fit into. Like, could you imagine Tusk with randomly Jay and Silent Bob like showing up and knocking on that dude's house?
Hey, motherfucker.
And so this late in his career, this is when he had kind of moved on to some different muses, right? He had Justin Long coming in for everything now. He had
also a good dude.
His daughter's starting to be in a lot of things. Harley Quinn Smith. Who else showed up in all these movies? Not Bruce Willis. He fucking hated working with Bruce Willis.
He does, man. I felt so bad for him. It sounds like Bruce Willis was kind of a fucking bully.
Yeah, he really fucking hates
I wonder how many times he called Kevin Smith fatty.
I don't know.
Probably many.
Probably more than Jason Mewes does in all of these movies put together.
He does call him fatty quite a few times.
And you know, all of these movies are the ones that aren't necessarily connected to the wider Askew universe, as far as I can tell. So that's why they did show up in here. But Zack and Mary Make a Porno gets it. It's just so like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So what was your worst Jay and Silent Bob scene?
I also slightly cheated on this one, but I couldn't pick a scene similar to you, so I chose the entirety of the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, of which I saw some, not all, but what I saw.
I watched it when it first came out, and I just rewatched it today as the last movie I needed to watch, and it's nothing. It's just there.
I fucking hate it. I hate it. I hated every second of it because it felt like a Disney live-action reboot of those characters.
That's part of the joke of it, right?
Well, I fucking hate that joke.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Joke can blow me, bro.
And I believe it's Brody goes on a rant about remakes versus reboots, and that was a qualifier for one of the best rant awards because it was. He does a really good job of like laying it out, and it's Jason Lee going for like 3 minutes on, you know, a remake versus a reboot versus a sequel, and it's really funny, and then they all like just turn to the camera and literally wink at you. So the whole thing is played for a joke, and his daughter is really good in that, but other than that, there's not many redeeming qualities. So I'll give that to you.
I heard his daughter is not that great of an actress.
She's not, but she's good at the things that fit her into a Kevin Smith movie, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
And when I get to my Yoga Hosers award, I will talk more about that.
Here we go.
Which it's not this next one, which the next one is the best Ben Affleck appearance, so you get to go first here.
This is easy peasy, brother. It's Dogma as Bartleby.
It is. Dude, it absolutely is.
So good. So good. I mean, you see, for one, this might be my favorite Ben Affleck appearance, period. Because you see I feel like he's a genuine fucking actor in this movie instead of a caricature in a lot of his other movies. Even though he's playing a caricature, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I completely get it.
Well, I mean, you see every range of emotion. He's actually a well-written character, surprisingly. I mean, he's still pissed off at God for his expulsion. And he's
an optimistic fallen angel, right? Who's constantly trying to talk Loki, the angel of death, into being less violent and deadly. And I think... So what I wrote is this is one of the few instances of Ben Affleck trying to make the characters around him better, and he does a good job. Like, he's on his LeBron shit in this movie.
100%. Well, you could tell he's having so much fun with it. Yeah, I mean, he's acting with Matt Damon.
Yeah.
He's great in Good Will Hunting. Don't get me wrong.
It's more or less the angel version of his character in Good Will Hunting.
Yeah. With better, I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Until the end, like the end, you know, the guy in Good Will Hunting doesn't go on a killing spree that we know of. Maybe that happened after the movie turned off, but you know, he's the whole
I wasted 89 cents on this coffee.
The whole lead up to, you know, his eventual turn, he's just there to be optimistic for Matt Damon, because Matt Damon, Loki, can't be optimistic because he's the angel of death and his whole life has been killing. So he's just there to be optimistic, and he's just so damn charming early in Dogma. And I think charming Ben Affleck is always the best version of Ben Affleck, and we don't get to see it enough anymore.
No, definitely not at all. I think that was a good time in his life too. Mm-hmm. Like we got him at his while he was riding high, having a good time, and I think it was a movie he wanted to do. He seems pretty... You can tell when that dude's putting forth some effort and when he's not. Like Fargo, The Town, fucking Dogma.
He's not in Fargo. Argo.
Argo, that's what I meant.
Very different movies.
Offended. You son of a bitch.
Very different movies, Fargo and Argo. I would love to see Ben Affleck in Fargo, though.
Don't you ever mix those up.
Fargo season 5. Let's get Affleck in there.
Dude.
So he's just this charming guy all the time, then boom, all of a sudden he flips off screen and becomes a radicalized anarchist who decides God's not worth it anymore because God gave people everything, and some don't even believe in it. So he's just like, all right, fuck it, we're going to wage war on God. And then, so Crazy Eyes Ben Affleck is also a great Ben Affleck. Yes. There are very few actors that can go from extremely charming to utterly disenchanting the way Ben Affleck does in this movie.
Very I think few that's what he looks like at the craps table. Like,
yeah.
He's so good, dude. And him and Matt Damon's banter are just... It's so fantastic. Like, you really see their friendship kind of come through there. And between the motivations and the cast around him, he somehow elevated Salma Hayek, Matt Damon, Chris Rock. Even though, yeah,
I forgot Chris Rock was in it until I rewatched it.
Fucking Alan Rickman.
Chris Rock was on his like coming back from the dead angel shit at this point in time because he did Down to Earth right around the same time.
Yeah, he's like,
great movie.
I found God. I found God.
And Dogma, I think, is probably the most interesting movie in Kevin Smith's filmography.
It's absolutely... It's got something to say, man.
It's a takedown of religion and the way people believe. And then by the end of it, it becomes this commendation of religion in that, everything works out and God is in fact there for you and will help you when needed. And even, immaculately conceives a baby for this woman who was otherwise infertile. But the whole movie is leading up is like, nah, God doesn't give a shit, right? God's not there for you. And that's what Bartleby and Loki see, and then boom, all of a sudden it's like, oh no, she is there. Don't worry.
Right. And I mean, I kind of looked at it as, maybe even if God doesn't exist, sometimes these small miracles to people other that aren't you are maybe that's God working through those miracles. Like it was good. I really enjoyed the fact that he changed the game and God is a woman. Like, I thought that was tight.
Shout out Alanis Morissette.
Yeah.
Great choice.
That really fucking was. If he picked, like, Barbra Streisand, Betty White would have been a sweet-ass God.
I liked the thing where she couldn't talk either. So, like, you get this, at the time, super famous singer, and she doesn't even speak. Like, Alan Rickman's there to be her voice, right? And that's a really good, like, extra cherry on top of all of the jokes that go into this.
The voice of God.
Alan Rickman's great there too, and you can tell it's between this and Galaxy Quest 99 to 2001. He's just like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Being
cocaine.
In these movies. But he's having a lot of fun, and then he starts on Harry Potter, and it's all off from there.
He's so good in Harry Potter.
Yeah, we'll get back to Harry Potter. So what's your worst Ben Affleck appearance?
All of his scenes in Mallrats.
So I had that as it's bad, but I think he's doing a good job of being bad because I had that as a potential best Ben Affleck, just because like he's pulling off that douchey guy perfectly.
I think he just plays him too fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Like if you're being a douchey guy, you're not gonna lean into the guy you're annoyed with and be like, "Are you sure you saw her get on the elevator?"
Yeah, like, he's punching Jason London or Jeremy London, whichever. I don't know which one's which. They're twins. No, Jason Lee's on the elevator. And then that's right. The London twin is off the elevator, like talking to him, like, I don't know where she went. Like, he's punching that guy so fast.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be whooping his ass because you think you would know exactly what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
But also,
he goes to her at the mall every day. He knows who they are.
Yeah, right. I know who you are. His little joke in front of everybody. It's like, dude, why don't you just hit him? That's like much less damaging than something like that. The motherfucker, someone's gonna call the cops. There's Karens back in 1993, or whenever the fuck this movie was made. Let's see here.
Yeah, that's right.
95.
Yeah, 95. Okay.
Plus his man, he really does play a great douche. But like his outfit is so douchey. His hair is douchey as fuck. Ugh.
He's a good douche.
He gives me chills in that movie, and it just seems like he's having a not great time. Well, he's still learning.
Yeah. He's not fully on board yet, right? Because he wasn't in Clerks. Like, this is the second movie. This is where he's coming in. He had been in Dazed and Confused, and he was a very small part in Dazed and Confused. And again, he was a dick there too, chasing around all the underclassmen with the paddle. Like that was all he did.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much just a dickhead.
Yeah. So I went with Chasing Amy. And this is
Really?
Ben Affleck is douchey in Chasing Amy, but super creepy douchey, not funny douchey like he is in Mallrats.
He is not a no, it means no kind of guy in Chasing Amy.
Like, I feel like in Mallrats he was in on the joke, and in Chasing Amy he's just creepy and obsessive, and he thinks he just deserves being with Alyssa simply for being alive and attractive and in her orbit.
Because he's in love with her.
Right, he's the archetypal nice guy, and he even like leans into this as well of like, or sorry, quote unquote nice guy. Not an actual nice guy. These nice guys on the internet, you know, the white knights or whatever, who think they deserve a girl just because they said one nice thing about them, right? And the whole time he's just doing this passive aggressively belittling her and her sexuality, trying to kind of neg the lesbianism out of her, which doesn't work.
He's basically a walking pray the gay away type of douchebag. And I'm that special. You're gonna love me.
Well, so I had qualified Chasing Amy for the worst rant too, because he goes on, like when he confesses her love to her, he goes on a very cringy rant. And I think Chasing Amy fits better under Worst Affleck than it does under Worst Rant, because he's just so incredibly awful in it. And he's doing a very good job as an actor, but his character is so awful, and I don't know that the character was written to be awful, right? I think the character was written like because guys like that exist, and they win sometimes, and so I don't know that at that time in the mid 90s anyone was in on the joke of what was going on there. Right now it looks like, okay, this is just a big joke. Like, this guy's obviously a douche, and we know that, and he's not going to get the girl. But I think in 1997 or whenever that one came out, it was like, no, these two belong together. She can't be a lesbian. It's Ben Affleck.
I think that was Kevin Smith's idea of, like,
well, and
why he didn't get all the girls, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe so they return, Holden and Alyssa return in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot in a scene, and that they're co-parents, and she's married, and like he donated sperm so they could have a baby, and they co-parent, whatever. But they go on this whole thing about, like, because he writes the Chasing Amy comic book at the end, she comes in and she's like, yeah, you know, it was pretty good, but it seems like something that should have been written by a woman or a LGBTQ community, somebody different than a cis white male should have written this story. And they kind of, that's another kind of wink at the camera of like, Chasing Amy is a product of its time more so, and it's not what it should be.
Yeah, I never looked at it that way. That's a good point of view.
Yeah. So for nothing, if you don't watch the whole reboot, watch that scene. It's pretty interesting, and it's kind of Kevin Smith taking accountability for, like, he wasn't the right person to write that movie, but it is what it is at this point, and all he can do is say, you know, my bad, and if there's another project like this, let's give it to somebody who is more qualified to tell that story. And so,
well, I mean, yeah, it needed to be said, and he had a vehicle to say some stuff like that at the time,
mm-hmm.
but it's just a different ball game. You know, right. I think that was his recognition of, like, I'm not there anymore. Like, I just don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out on a limb and try and tell that story again, because clearly I can't do it the right way.
It's not my place.
Yeah.
It's not my place anymore.
So just real quick on this rant of Ben Affleck's love confession to Alyssa, super cringy, over the top, completely uncalled for, in a way that he thinks her lesbianism is a fleeting thought that can just be changed because the right guy said some mushy words to her.
Hence the pray the gay away.
Yeah, he goes way too far, too fast with his confession, and he rightfully scares her off at the time. And then she even calls him out on it while they're in the car having that conversation, and he still just tries to talk her out of it. He's like, no, listen to me. He refers to her changing her entire lifestyle as a period of adjustment. And it's worth it because he's in love with her, but he's not in love with her. He's just obsessed with her because he can't have her. And to put that burden onto her by unloading all his feelings on her is just not a good look. And it's a very rough scene. And what makes it even worse is at the end of it, it kind of works, and he wears her down to the point that she makes out with him in the rain, and they even date for a little while. And so I think that's the part that Kevin Smith's not qualified for, right? Is he puts all this out there, Ben Affleck's character puts it all out there, and it works because it shouldn't work. Like, you can't just flip a switch on somebody because you said the right combination of words.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. You didn't do worst Ben Affleck appearance yet, did you? Yes, you did.
I did Mallrats.
Mallrats, that's right. The other douchey. All right, so best quest. I go first here. What?
No, I was just, yeah, they're both douchey.
Yeah. Douchey Ben Affleck is something.
It's fucking out there.
Yeah. So the best quest, I went with Jersey Girl. Being a good dad.
Aww. Aww.
He's a shitty dad early on, and it's a bad look. But he plays the part well of being a shitty dad. But
Who's Ben Affleck?
Yeah, it's Ben Affleck.
Oh, he's in Jersey Girl too. Damn.
Yep, he's the main character of Jersey Girl. This is it's just it's like spoilers for Jersey Girl, I guess. He marries Jennifer Lopez. She gives birth to the kid. She dies giving birth. And then now he has to raise her, and he gets his dad to help. His dad lives in New Jersey, but he works in New York for some like music production company or something, right? And he's got this big shot job. So he's shitty early on because he doesn't know what to do. His wife died. He has no idea how to handle it. But then we fast forward 7 years, and he's right back to charming Ben Affleck. He had lost his job, and he's there as dad all the time, and just perfect charming Ben Affleck again. And then later he's shitty again. So he kind of oscillates between charming Ben Affleck and shitty Ben Affleck. And he's, again, just like Dogma, he's great in only a way that I think Ben Affleck can be. I don't know who else can flip this switch between being incredibly charming to just total piece of shit and flip it back and forth. And you believe him both ways, right?
He's so good at it. It's that fucking shit-eating grin he's got.
Yeah. I think... So, like, somebody like George Clooney has the charming side down. And I think he could be as charming as Ben Affleck is in some of these movies. But
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a Harrison Ford quality, actually.
Yeah. It'd have to be young Harrison Ford, and I'd have to see it. But Jersey Girl's really interesting. You can tell this is one Kevin Smith, he put a lot of his heart into it. He pulled from his personal experience of being a father, other than, his wife dying, because his wife is very much alive and in most of his movies. I enjoyed this movie a lot. It felt very real, and it wasn't a typical Kevin Smith movie. This really broke it up for me. This was, I think, the fourth or fifth one that I watched, so it was a nice change of pace. There's this bit with Will Smith, which is really great. So Affleck works for this record label, and he just trashes the shit out of Will Smith, gets fired. That's how he gets relegated to just being a dad in New Jersey. And then later, he goes in to interview with this other music production company, and he meets Will Smith. After Will Smith is blown up, because like the first time it's like 1992 or 93 before Will Smith is really, fucking Will Smith.
Yeah, America's and so
when they meet 7 years later, he's done Independence Day. He's probably like going into Wild Wild West at this point. Done Men in Black, done Independence Day. So he's at the height of his powers. And they have this really great chat about being fathers, and Will Smith doesn't seem to recognize Ben Affleck, and he's like, Affleck is trying to play it off in a very cheesy Ben Affleck-y way, and he does a great job of just, like, very understated, like, yeah, no, I don't think you know me, but Will Smith's like, I think I've seen you somewhere. So it's very funny, and it's a very good scene. It takes you out of the Askew universe in such a good way, and it doesn't feature any of those usual trademarks. There's no Jay and Silent Bob. There's no really long-winded rants that just go nowhere. Very few heavy-handed nerd references, and there's only one distracting cameo with Jason Lee and Matt Damon interviewing Ben Affleck for a job, but that's the only one.
I can't believe those two got roped into these movies. I seriously cannot believe it, but they're all.
I don't really know where else Jason Lee fits though, right?
I mean, Jason Lee, I just can't believe.
My Name is Earl.
Yeah, he used to be a professional skateboarder too.
Well, that's true.
He was fucking good, dude.
Yeah, I've seen.
He was fun to watch.
So, what was your best quest?
My best quest is the second pick from a single movie. Obviously, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Nick. Kiss my white ass. It's stopping the movie Blunt Man and Chronic. Because everyone was calling them pussies online. Dude, that single
was invented
quest,
so people could get on and bitch about movies.
Oh man, that single quest is just so perfect. Their journey is fantastic. I love when they're sitting there talking shit on the computer in movies. That just takes me back, dude, to when they had N64s and McDonald's and stuff like that.
That was all good stuff, yeah.
Oh man,
the only part I don't like about that is when they stumble onto like the literal mystery machine.
Yeah,
that was up for my worst nerd reference, but it got edged out by something else. But
that was definitely out there.
Yeah, that was just weird.
But and you get all the good. That's one where Ben Affleck is good, but I hate his dialogue. Even though he's just got that.
He's
really,
back as
really
Holden
small,
in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really small. Someone pissed in his Cheerios or some shit.
They're all running together in my head right now.
Yeah, it's hard to.
It's very hard to
sometimes.
to separate them when because Ben Affleck in a lot of them, especially the later ones, he just shows up for a scene like Clerks 2. He comes in and orders something from movies, and then he yells at somebody because they did something. He goes, "That's not very hygienic," and that's it. That's the end of the scene. It's kind of funny.
He's like, "I got 15 minutes," and he's like, "All right, cool. We'll film this shit." But yeah, they're when they meet. The three hottest chicks at the time period, Elizabeth Dushku and Sean William Scott,
Shannon Elizabeth, and who's the other one?
I don't know her name. Her face is familiar.
Oh, Allie Larder, I think was.
But yeah, those are the honeys of the time, and they're fucking Shannon Elizabeth. Is that her name?
Yeah, the one he ends up hooking up with.
Right.
Yeah.
And their baby in the future, but Sean William Scott is fantastic in that. That was a good runner-up for one of my favorite rants too. Was the shit he types out to the people from movies.
Oh yeah.
Fucking pussies.
Yeah, I had that.
I'll make you eat that shit and then shit out and eat that shit.
He did the same thing in the reboot. Just another version of the reboot is almost exactly Strikes Back put together.
They're older and have veneers.
Yeah, and Harley Quinn Smith is in it.
Ayo.
So worst quest, I went with Tusk. Not the whole walrus thing, because that's weird. That's bad. But just finding a weird podcast guest to interview in Winnipeg after they pretty much cyberbullied the original guest into killing himself for the Nazi Party podcast. I'm not down for that.
Yeah, it sounds awful.
Yeah. Sidebar, the Nazi Party, NOTSEE Party podcast is not a terrible idea for a podcast. I've heard a lot of bad ideas for podcasts. This one isn't that bad of an idea. So it's one of them, Justin Long's character, goes and sees and interviews someone weird, and the other one, Haley Joel Osment, won't go and see that thing because he doesn't like traveling. So then Justin Long comes back and describes it to him, and they just kind of riff on that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fun.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do it alone.
No, I wouldn't want to travel. My wife would be going on every trip with me, absolutely, because otherwise I'm going to get turned into a fucking walrus.
Yeah, no.
I would.
Honey, please, you got to come with me. And she's like, why? Why do I need to come with you to go see this 95-year-old man that's broken down and dying? Because he might turn me into something. What was that, honey? I didn't hear you. Because he might turn me.
He really likes walruses. I don't know why.
He's going to fucking cut my shit off.
So Justin Long's character is absolutely the super perfect podcast bro in this movie. Absolutely perfect.
He plays that character to a T. I gotta say, Kevin Smith is the most ballering, whatever you want to say. He's baller as fuck for casting Justin Long in this role.
Justin Long is so great, and he started using
Justin Long.
Yeah, Justin Long's amazing. he has this, in this movie in particular, but even in other movies, he does a good job of it. He has this special ability to come up with random ass phrases that make it feel like whatever the interviewee is saying is interesting, but he's actually not interested or probably even listening to what the interviewee is saying. So like the guy with the walrus fetish, he's like sitting there going off about one of his stories about Ernest Hemingway or whoever the fuck he's talking about, right? And he's just like, super balls, man, I can't believe that. Like he just comes up with these like really like intense phrases and has this intense eye contact with him, like he's actually paying attention, but you know he's definitely not. Like he's just waiting to get to the next point. And these types of podcast hosts that absolutely exist, they simultaneously keep the podcast game afloat and make everyone else look bad, because when you say you have a podcast, everyone assumes you're this type of person, right? It's the Joe Rogan effect. It like that's exactly what Joe Rogan is like, you just talk for 5 minutes, I'm going to sit here and say these weird phrases in the middle like I'm super interested in it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that can happen sometimes.
What do you mean? Like you're actually interested?
Well, no. Well, if someone goes on, a long tangent, it's really hard, or not tangent, but when they're trying to make a point, it's really hard to get a point out there in response necessarily.
Right. Like I get that. It's
to draw that out, but Justin Long does it perfectly. Yeah, he's like a less threatening Joe Rogan.
Yeah, like it's the way they respond to it, right? It's not that they're just sitting there letting them ramble. It's the way that they respond to them with this super intense phraseology and like the way they stare at them. It's hard to explain. If you watch the first 20 minutes of Tusk, you'll see what I'm talking about. You don't have to watch the whole movie. But you'll understand. And like his girlfriend even calls him out on it at one point, and he kind of challenges it with how much money he makes. And she's like, because he apparently changed so much. He used to be like this kind of lame stand-up, and he switched into this type of person, and now it works. So he's going to keep doing it. And I never understood people that listen to those type of podcasts where it's just like dude bros like being super interested in the nothing that the other dude bro is saying, but they're super popular. And to me, it takes no thought or effort to make these kind of lowest common denominator of jokes at the expense of random people, and listeners just lap that shit up for some reason. Like it opens with this kid literally cutting off his leg and then making fun of him doing it for background like noise. 5 minutes. Yeah. And I don't know, but it works, I guess. So shout out to dude bro podcasters.
Fucking dude, man, bro.
What is your worst quest?
Worst quest. This one, I'm going to keep it short and simple.
I thought I would with Tusk, and that didn't happen.
No, well, this one, I fucking hate this movie. I've said it already. And the worst quest is making Rent by making a porno. Yeah. Zack and Miri make a porno. What kind of dumbass shit is that? Someone gets shit on? Fuck that movie. It is gross. It is terrible.
It's very bad.
And can you imagine Jay and Silent Bob and Seth Rogen fucking interacting with each other? That makes me want to throw up.
Well, that's why they weren't in that movie.
By how stupid it would be. God damn it. If they were in that movie, I would get high just watching it.
It's very bad. That was
fucking
my runner-up for this, definitely.
What's that?
I said that was definitely my runner-up for this. Cop Out is another one that goes up there on the list of like he's got to get his baseball card back or some shit.
What kind of dumbass shit is? Oh, we can't make Rent. Yeah, let's fucking make a porno. What? Seth Rogen, you're a fat hairy dude. Like
you jumped a lot of steps in there. Like there's a lot that goes in between. Like I can't pay my bill to I make Rent, and they just jumped right over all of them.
Homie, go down to the Papa John's. They're always hiring delivery drivers. Fucking a newspaper will. This is what 2010, 2011 when this came out.
That was like 07, 08.
Was it really that long ago?
I remember watching it in college. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because it was right when Rogan was starting. It was after Knocked Up. It was after Superbad. So he's starting to kind of have his own cachet in movies, and then this comes, and you're just like, what the fuck?
I remember watching that movie. Oh fuck! I was with a couple friends of mine, and they're dying while this dude gets shit on, and I'm sitting there just going, "What the fuck?" It was not good, and they skipped. Yeah, like you said, they skipped a lot of fucking steps.
The first time I saw it, I was in college, and we watched it at the house I lived in. And we just had a couple people over, and we're like drinking beers or whatever. None of us paid any attention to it. Like that's how unengaging it was. Is I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in that movie from that first time I watched it. And then I watched it a second time a couple months ago because it was on Netflix, and I was like, I didn't really give it a fair shake. We were doing a lot of other shit. We were playing games, and everything was going on. Like maybe we just weren't paying attention, and that's why it was so forgettable. And nope, it's just as bad.
It's just bad.
It's actually worse when you're paying attention to it.
I fucking bet, because, dude, it's not good. It's a terribly written movie. The dialogue is shit. The characters are shit. It's a dumb incentive.
He couldn't have written that either, right?
No, he did.
He did?
Pretty sure he did. No, the only one he didn't write is Cop Out. He wrote this right before Cop Out.
Cop Out was next, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's rough, my man. All right, so best monologue rant by a character. Now we're really getting into the Kevin Smithisms here. What do you got?
I got Silent Bob's monologue in Chasing Amy.
It's a good one.
It is a fantastic... And here's a little fun fact. When I was growing up, or my formative years in teenagerhood, this was a super important scene to me because, I don't know. Long story short, wasn't really looking for the right woman, I guess, if that makes sense.
I mean, you're a high school boy, so yeah. None of us were.
I was pretty convinced that, I don't know, it made me more aware, I guess is probably the best way of saying it, of a genuinely good partner.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's
like that. It's not just about how hot she is.
Right. Well, the analogy of chasing Amy, spending the rest of your life. I'm terrible about regrets. Like I hate regretting shit. So I try to get it right the first time around, if that makes any sense as well. And, that was, as you've said before, one of his points where he breaks it down really well, but it's just really long. It's a little too fucking long.
Yeah.
But it's extremely profound. It really plays up one of the early moments where he says something, and coming from his mouth, it sounds a whole lot better.
Well, yeah,
especially with him
every time he talks when he's in a movie, you've got to stop and listen. Like it's whatever he's saying is going to be important. And
well, he's a good orator. He speaks well. He's got a good cadence. His voice is deep and semi baritone, and he's making a solid point. So it's like, okay.
And Chasing Amy is kind of the perfect, it brings everything together. It is his monologue in that, and he does a really good job.
Yeah.
I went with Clerks. Lot to choose from in Clerks. There's a lot of just one-on-none talking, but I went with Randall's final rant about him and Dante working as clerks in these stores. He kind of calls Dante out on his bullshit, I'm not even supposed to be here bullshit. And then he talks about it's basically a monkey's job and anyone could do it, and Dante tries to make himself feel important about it, but really Jay's the one who's got it right. And he kind of goes, if we're so fucking advanced, what are we doing here? Randall knows what he's doing there. He knows it's perfect for him because he's a lazy burnout and he's accepted that about himself. But Dante thinks he's still going to make something out of himself. He's like 25 years old. He dropped out of college already, but he still thinks he's going places. But it's everybody else's fault that he is where he is, both in terms of working that day at the store and in life. And I think it's just one of the best summations of how good Kevin Smith is at making mundane situations seem spectacular, but also still mundane. Like these two guys, they have this lifelong friendship and they're going nowhere in life. And a blow up like this, where Randall's basically yelling at Dante, that would end a lot of friendships. And that's kind of the spectacular part about this, right? Is that he blows up in that way. But then 5 minutes later, Randall walks back in and it's like nothing ever happened. And so you're back to this mundane friendship all of a sudden. And that's kind of what these real friendships are like. You could want to kill each other in one moment and then poof, it's just all gone. And Kevin Smith is great at capturing those things.
He's relatable. Shit, man, I remember my roommate, we fought like 9 or 10 times, like fist fought. But dude was my best friend at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of dramatic on the other end of the spectrum, but I hear what you're saying in regards to the way that monologue, the way it came across was fantastic.
Right.
It really was. And that was probably their best acted scene, those two guys, period, between every movie they appear in. Those guys are not good actors.
No. And that's why they're in the rest of the movies, they're side characters whenever they do show up.
Yeah, they're not very good.
So what did you have for the worst monologue or rant by a character?
Abin Cooper's sermon in
Red State. Yes.
Dude. This fucking guy.
I couldn't tell you anything he said. I was playing Madden while I was watching it.
Oh, man. He basically talks about people fucking and homosexuality.
Evils of homosexuality, yeah.
Yeah. It's every, like, mega church's sermon that makes zero sense and just talks a lot of people into suppressing, all their feelings about themselves and each other.
Like I said,
it's dumb as fuck.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I was playing Madden when I was watching this part, and I kept looking up and realized he's still talking, and I'm like,
dude, it was 9 minutes.
Yeah,
over 9 fucking minutes.
Well, so it was 7 to 8 minutes, then he stops to get the children out of the room because it's about to get real adult in here, meaning he's going to torture the boys they kidnapped, and then he goes again for another minute or so after, there's a couple minutes or like 30 seconds of the kids all walking out of the room. But I had to rewind it and be like, did he really talk that whole time? And how long is it? Because I wanted to time it to be like, this has got to be the worst monologue, right? Because I just kept looking up being like, this guy's still fucking talking? What the hell is there to say? Like, how is homosexuality that evil that you can go on for 9 minutes about it?
Well, that's the thing is, to you and I, it's just like, okay, that is a 1 second fucking discussion. Who gives a shit? It's not my place. Whereas this dude talked for 9 minutes. That epitomizes Kevin Smith's art of just really bringing the real world into cinema. Like that, there are people like that. There are millionaires that make all their money off talking like that.
Well, I guess he invited the Westboro Baptist Church to the premiere because they did like a rolling premiere where they went city to city, and I think it's Memphis that is where Westboro Baptist Church is the like their headquarters or whatever. So he invited them there, and then they protested, and he set up a counter protest to their protest. And at one point, he even joined their protest because he knew they had no idea who he was, just like as a joke. And the behind the scenes of Red State is pretty interesting. And Red State's weird. I thought it was 3 different movies, right, throughout the thing.
It felt like it.
First, it's okay, there's this right side of liberal family living in this very rural red area, and that's what we're going to see. We're going to have to see them deal with whatever these people are bringing, because it opens with that protest of the funeral of the gay kid that just died, who we later find out that's this cult killed. Okay, fine. That's what this movie's going to be. And then, boom, all of a sudden now it's, these 3 kids got kidnapped by the cult. That's what this movie's going to be. It's going to be them escaping the cult and, getting back to their lives. And then all of a sudden it's fucking John Goodman and a SWAT team going blow for blow with these illegal weapons that the cult has for like an hour. And I was like, what the hell? How did this movie turn into that?
It's a more fucked up version of any form of Waco.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough. And, dude, that monologue is goddamn rough.
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
so hateful.
Yeah.
It's one of the most hateful speeches I could honestly that my mind could conjure up to put, pen to paper and actually write that shit. It's not tough.
Yeah, that'd be hard. I'll say this. I was happy I was playing Madden during it, right?
Well, I mean, I watched it on YouTube. Well, I listened to it on YouTube when I was at work, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this,
hope you had your headphones in.
Oh, fuck yeah. Absolutely.
Guys, Nick's been indoctrinated into a cult. What do we do? Who in HR can handle this? All right, so now for the main event, the best nerd reference. I went deep on this one with Yoga Hosers.
You son of a bitch.
We got a Stan Lee cameo. He is a 911-ish, because it's Canada, so it's not actually 911.
What? He cameos in that shit?
Yeah. So he's a dispatcher, and he talks about how Hitler is a nasty camper worse than Doctor Doom and Darth Vader combined. And
love it.
It was such a random but perfect spot for a Stan Lee cameo, and it might be one of my favorites he's ever done.
That's just out there.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think he would.
He's really good in Mallrats, and he's really good here. Like, it's really funny. Stan Lee he's just such a kick-ass dude.
Really is. You wouldn't think that he would appear in Kevin Smith movies, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Smith is on Stan Lee's nutsack.
Oh, 100%. So
anyone out there.
I have an honorable mention within Yoga Hosers as well. Kevin Conroy shows up as a customer to their convenience store doing his absolute best Batman voice, and he's got a kid with him that's wearing this button-down shirt that's got a little R in a circle on it. So it's Kevin Conroy and this dude, this kid with an R on his shirt. And it was great. And he's just like talking about like convenience store stuff where I need some cigarettes, blah, 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 whatever. And the one problem with it, the only problem I have here, and the reason it didn't win, is because he's leaving and he's like, he's telling him, and he goes, "Okay, Robin, let's get out of here." And like that made me mad. Like, just leave it subtle of like the little R on his shirt, and this is the voice of Batman. Like, the people will get it if you leave it, right? The people who want to get it will get that. You don't have to call him Robin by name.
Nerds will get it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, we get it. We know
we're nerds.
We get everything. Yeah, we know Kevin Conroy. Don't worry. So Yoga Hosers is a lot of fun. It's like Clerks mixed with Scream, mixed with a little bit of Little Nicky somehow.
That sounds great. Does someone have tits on their head?
No tits on the head, but there are little sausage versions of Hitler, played by Kevin Smith. And they just beat the shit out of these little sausage Hitlers. So Lily Rose Depp, who is Johnny Depp's daughter, and which is why Johnny Depp is in Tusk and Yoga Hosers. So Lily Rose Depp and Harley Quinn Smith, they work really well together, and they feel a lot like those Jason Lee, Ben Affleck, or whichever London twin it was, and Randall, Dante, even Jay and Silent Bob to a certain extent, except absolutely neither one of them is silent, in this case. But they work really well together. They have that rapport that these other characters and actors have. They've apparently been friends their entire lives, and it really shows. I enjoy it, and like I'm weirdly looking forward to Moose Jaw to see more of them together, because they're really funny to watch together.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, it's not a good movie, right? But none of the Kevin Smith movies are good, but it's a lot of fun.
That's a good way to say it.
Actually, Clerks is a good movie, I would say. Out of all the movies, Clerks is a good movie. Chasing Amy is a pretty good movie too. If
Dogma's a super solid movie.
Yeah.
Too.
Okay. You know what? They're all good. Fuck it.
I guess.
Except Cop Out. Fuck Cop Out.
Yeah.
All right. So what was your best nerd reference?
My best nerd reference was the whole Lord of the Rings Clerks 2 scene.
That was my runner-up here.
Loved it. It was fantastic.
The Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars.
Right. It was a staunch argument. That was one of the most animated times you ever see Randall. And what is his name? Elias? I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
He's a weird-ass dude. And just this random cat coming into the restaurant to order some food, and they just... I swear to God, dude, if I was ordering some food and this cat was just like, one ring to rule
Well, he had the ring on a necklace or on his finger. So, like, you got to kind of call it out.
Well, I mean, he fucking pulled the ring out of his pocket.
Oh, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, it was a replica ring in his pocket. So he said that, and then they started going back and forth. And he straight up pulls out a replica ring, and then a whole argument starts between, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings fan, which, if you have been in one of these, is quite venomous. And it was summed up so well by Kevin Smith.
Well, yeah, they're in this. I was going to make this point with something later, but in this argument, they're both right and they're both wrong perfectly in every argument that they make, right? Of why Star Wars is better and why Lord of the Rings is better. Both sides of it are right and simultaneously right and wrong throughout the entire argument. And that's really something interesting that only someone like Kevin Smith can do.
Yeah. No, I mean it doesn't feel like a total rant because there's more than one person just
right. They're going back
talking.
and forth, but
The dialogue
it's
is broken up.
It's definitely a nerd reference that only nerds will get wrapped up in.
But it's so understandable.
Yeah.
It just harkens back to Kevin Smith being like the most relatable director on the face of the earth.
I think Star Wars is probably more enjoyable, but Lord of the Rings is probably better filmmaking.
Are we about to have one of these arguments right now?
I mean, go ahead. You can try and argue that Star Wars is a better made film than any of the Lord of the Rings movies. I don't think you're going to win that.
No, I'm in regards to being more fun.
Look,
more
man,
enjoyable.
3+ hours is not going to ever be like, let's fucking do it. This is going to be a fun ride.
Maybe I'm just different in that regard. Maybe I'm just special, Calvin.
And again, no laser swords anywhere in Middle Earth.
I don't give a fuck. He throws a man. Like, he throws a dude.
They don't have any cool cars. No Millennium Falcon.
Fuck them cars. They ride eagles, dog.
No land speeder. Eagles. Yeah, at the end of the second movie.
They have a thing called lambus bread.
Han Solo.
You ever heard of this
Han Solo would have thought to ride the Eagles at, like, the beginning of Star Wars, man.
I mean, yeah, but then the Eagles would have ate him. Just throwing that out there.
There's no boring-ass trees. Even the trees walk in Lord of the Rings, man.
God damn you.
It's just 3 hours. It's 3 movies of walking.
Here's the first movie. And the second.
Even the trees fucking walk.
Yeah, that's a good art. That's a good rant.
Fair.
I love that shit.
All right, so the worst nerd reference for me is Cop Out. I hate to give it an award, but just everything Tracy Morgan is doing in the opening interrogation scene, he goes on this random string of movie references that are mostly cop movies, but not all of them, and they don't fit them in nicely as you usually do with these references.
Tracy Morgan never does.
Well,
man.
Right. It's just yelling them in that way that is super Tracy Morgan-y, right? It's very annoying, and Cop Out is very bad.
You ever seen that movie Rush Hour? Shit is dope, man. They catch the bad guy. Stares at the guy.
The most unbelievable part of Cop Out, in my mind, and most cop movies, is how quickly these cops get suspended without pay after assaulting some random citizen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the first scene they assault somebody, and he's like, give me your badges. Turn it over. No pay. And it's like, that shit doesn't happen.
No, not at all. He might even get a raise.
Yeah. Let's not go too deep into that.
Good job.
So what is your worst nerd reference?
My worst is maybe a little bit picky, but I'm going to go with it anyways. And that's the Star Wars rant or Randall, the reference rant Randall makes about Star Wars in Clerks.
Okay, so which one? Because he does it twice.
The one with the contractors.
Yeah.
He's talking about the goddamn contractors.
Yeah.
And it goes on for fucking ever.
But he's right, though.
About nothing.
Like, innocent contractors died, Nick. Don't you care?
I understand the contractors died. I don't give a fuck. That was their job, Calvin. That was their goddamn job. Look, I get his point, and that's something I'd probably think about if I was baked out of my fucking mind. But why? Like, why? That's really where it comes from for me. Like, I get if that whole scene was 30 seconds, probably would have been best nerd reference.
It's a little long.
And it is so long, and they say the same shit over and over.
I think when you boil it down, that's what Kevin Smith is best at, giving stoned nerds conversation pieces.
It's hardly a conversation when he just rants.
Well, no, right, for Randall. But what I'm saying is, all of these nerd references peppered into all 13 of these movies give stoned nerds their own jumping off points to have their own conversations about these things, right?
Right.
And I think Kevin Smith just like because that's the world his brain lives in is constant pop culture. He basically lives in the Oasis from Ready Player One in his own brain. He's just constantly like thinking of these little nitpicks or things about nerd culture movies, and then he sticks it into his movie so other people can have those conversations the way he had them in his head.
I mean,
and thank you for that, Kevin Smith.
Yes, seriously, someone needed to do it.
It's him and Will Wheaton, man, out here for the rest of us.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, so we gave out 5 awards. We gave Best and Worst Jay and Silent Bob Scene, Best and Worst Ben Affleck Appearance, Best and Worst Quest, Best and Worst Monologue or Rant by a Character, and Best and Worst Nerd Reference. So go back and check all those out if you don't remember what we said. Just listen to it again and again and again and until they're stuck in your head. But just remember, Cop-Out's the worst out of all.
All of them.
Yep.
I wouldn't know, but I'm going to take Calvin's word for it.
It's bad. It's worse than Zack and Mary Make a Porno.
Ooh.
So now we come to what would you do, Nick? And the question here is, where do you stand with Kevin Smith as a director overall? I think we've mostly covered this, but let's just wrap it up into a nice bow here.
If I had to put it in a simple 2-sentence form, 3-sentence form, he's okay. I really got to be in the mood for his quirky humor, but his cinematography is solid for what it is most of the time.
Well, he doesn't make complicated movies either.
Right.
Cinematographically.
Cinematographically?
Yeah, that's probably not the right word.
It's soothing in regards to it's well shot, but it's not overtly complicated. I'm not there for the visuals. And if he's focused, then I'm super there for Kevin Smith. When he's not, you can definitely tell.
Other than the Jay and Silent Bob scenes, these movies don't necessarily need to be watched. You could listen to most of them and get what you want to get, but you kind of have to watch the Jay and Silent Bob scenes because Silent Bob is always over there doing some shit with his face that is really good and funny, which makes whatever Jay is saying funnier.
He's always doing some random ass shit.
I'm with you. I think he's really good at writing intellectual but nonsensical dialogue that no one would actually ever say or how they would say it. And he's also really good at finding people who can pull off this type of dialogue without it sounding douchey and pretentious. Like Dante and Randall are great at it. Jason Lee, whichever London twin is in Mallrats, are good at it. Ben Affleck, one of the best at it, especially with Matt Damon there with him. That Harley Quinn Smith and Lily Rose Depp are really good at that in Yoga Hosers. Justin Long is really good at it. He has a way of finding these people and putting them in there. Elizabeth Banks and Seth Rogen are really bad at it.
Dude, 100%.
That's his one miss. Like they didn't fit into that, into the people that they're not those type of people that can pull off that type of thing. And I think that he probably had to rewrite a lot of that movie because they couldn't do the things he wanted them to do. And then Justin Long shows up at their prom scene or their reunion scene and just fucking steals the show for 3 minutes because Justin Long is good at that.
Yeah, he really is. He's such a great bit character.
Yeah, it makes it really fun to kind of watch all these movies passively, like I said, because the dialogue is what sucks you in. And so you don't necessarily have to be looking at it. And so now the final thing is, what do you think about Kevin Smith as the bastion of nerd culture that he has become?
Dude, I think it's fantastic. With how much love he has for the culture, like, this may seem like an odd thought, but honestly, I think he has been the best thing for the overall health of nerd culture people. Like their physical health. The fact that he had a heart attack and nearly died and has like gotten his shit together. That's been.
So he had a heart attack. He didn't have cancer. I always thought it was cancer.
No, he had a heart attack. Okay. He was doing like a stand-up
My bad,
show or something.
Kevin Smith. I'm sorry. Thought it was cancer. It's heart attack. My bad.
Right. His heart was going to shit. I've listened to quite a few interviews with him just because I think mostly between him and Joe Rogan because I like Kevin Smith.
My man is on his podcast game. That's for he's got like 9 podcasts with his name on them.
Well, I mean, he's a good example for a lot of people, and I think it's great, dude. Like, nerdy people are awesome. I've been a nerd my whole life. I've been the fat kid too. I've been the quiet kid because you are thinking weird ass shit, and most people just look at you like you're fucking stupid.
Yeah, I'm over here thinking about what the fuck Spider-Man's doing, and that just staring off into space. Nobody wants to talk to that kid.
No, they're like, "What's Allen Iverson doing right now?"
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about that. Care. Too.
Have you ever heard of Galactus though?
On weed.
On weed. I can fly like.
I agree. I think it's really cool that he's kind of taken this on himself. Like nobody handed him this, right? He's just started talking about it over and over again, and he put it into his movies early on, his first movie starts with this Star Wars Return of the Jedi is actually better than Empire Strikes Back conversation between mostly Randall, and Dante. And he really gets it from all angles. He's not just a Star Wars guy. He's not just a Batman guy. He's an everything guy, and he loves it all and accepts it all.
He's a nerd.
Yeah.
He's a nerd. I feel that dude. Like, I feel that dude in my soul.
The other thing, he's not afraid to call out the actual faults in these quote-unquote perfect nerd relics, like Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star Wars. Like, he's okay going in on some of this thing. You know, one minute he has Randall talking about Return of the Jedi is better than Empire Strikes Back, and the next, Randall's out here shitting on the rebels for killing a bunch of independent contractors on the Death Star. Or, we talked about in Clerks 2, there's an entire argument between Randall and the customer, Star Wars versus Lord of the Rings, and they're both right and they're both wrong, and it's perfect. And it works. And even a character like Brody in Mallrats, he's way too into his fandom, which is everything. And he's way too into his comic books and everything like that. And he even gets that right, that he can't separate his fandom from real life. And it takes Stan the man himself to kind of point it out to him that, like, look, life isn't a comic book. If you like this girl, you have to talk to her like she's a person and treat her like she's a person, not one of your comic books. And I think he's the best thing that we have, and we need to cherish him for what he is in this regard, because without people like Kevin Smith or Will Wheaton, like I said before, we're going to slip quickly into the hellscape of random death threats to actors Star Wars fandom, and that the world at large needs to stay as far away from that as we can at all costs.
Oh, dude, it's so obnoxious and poisonous. And I think something I have not said about Kevin Smith so far that comes through in both his directing, his writing, and it just, his conversations is how much empathy and sympathy that dude has for the human race in general, even though people can be quite shitty. Like, you said it, he will call a lot of stuff out, but he does it in an empathetic manner that is like, okay, that's... It makes a lot more sense. It comes through a lot easier.
Yeah, he's very good at what he does, and I hope he can stick around for a while, because I think...
It sounds like you will, man.
I think fandoms need someone like him to look to kind of guide and trust. Like, he's doing this whole watch party for the Snyder Cut of the Justice League, and I think with something like that that's going to be polarizing right off the bat, like I think it's going to be helpful to have someone who's like, look, yeah, this is in pieces, but movies are really hard to make, and here's what they did good and here's what they did bad, and kind of coming at it from, okay, what's good from a nerd fan service point of view, what's good from a movie making point of view. I think that helps everyone involved, and I think more people need to listen to him, and I don't know that enough people do.
Well, I mean, we've mentioned several times he's a father as well. Kevin Smith made me very comfortable with being a nerdy ass dad, or at least passing a lot of this down to my daughter, because I'm not gonna lie, man, I was very worried that I would just be that dad. I wouldn't be able to relate to my kid. But my daughter, she knows all the Ninja Turtles, because I got like comics all over my wall in the basement, and she just wants to come down here and look at pictures of Ninja Turtles. Loves Donatello. So that was one of those Kevin Smith
I tried that. My kids,
lessons.
They just didn't go for it for whatever reason.
She loves the Ninja Turtles. It's fantastic. Love it. But I just,
they get in. I was playing Crash Bandicoot with them earlier. That was nice.
Hell yeah.
I got the Crash Bandicoot 4 because I got my PS5 a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool to do that. She's not good at it. Her hands aren't really big enough for the controller, but she was figuring it out, and it was cool to like share one of those things, and they both like Mario, which is cool. And so they're like, you have to find the things that fit, right? And it's
right,
not
absolutely.
just like, you can't just shove Power Rangers down their throat because you like Power Rangers, and even like I showed her Power Rangers, and she was like, yeah, it's pretty cool, and she liked the karate and stuff. But then she watched a couple episodes in school, like I said a couple weeks ago. They did it for like indoor PE when it was raining. They watched it and kind of like mimicked them or whatever, and like so now she's a little more into it. And it's just, you got to take advantage of the chances that you get when they kind of look like they kind of like something. You gotta don't bury them in it, because then they won't like it, but you gotta take what you can get. They like they like Spider-Man now because Into the Spider-Verse. They really like Spider-Gwen in Into the Spider-Verse, so like we share that.
Nice.
My daughter went to see Into the Spider-Verse with me twice.
Dope. That would be so fun.
And they like Spider-Pig too, because he's just funny.
Dude, I have his first issue.
Nice. You gotta find the things, and I'm staying away from Harry Potter until they are old enough to really like sink into the story, because I'd like them to read the books first, or at least get a sense of the books first before the movies. Yeah. And my younger daughter, she doesn't watch movies with real people yet, so like we do family movie night every week, and my wife's picked a few like live action movies. They're still kids movies, but she's like, "Is it real people? I don't want to watch real people." So. But it's okay.
All right. I mean,
like we even tried like the live action Cinderella that they did like 2015 or something, and she's like, "Nope, not watching it. Can't do it." All right.
I think that's fair.
But yeah, anything else on Kevin Smith?
That is all I got on Kevin Smith.
Shout out Kevin Smith. We know you're listening. If you got time, get us in one of your 15 podcasts. We're there for it. We'll guest on whichever one you want us on.
I'll be there.
Thank you for listening. You can check us out on Twitter at APA something, at alone_podcast. And you can check out our website, apodcastaboutSomething.com. You can buy merch at tpublic.com. Search a podcast about something. You'll find it. And
hell yeah.
Thank you always to those cats for the music for a podcast about something.
You gotta stay sassy.
Stay classy.